morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzawa. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you for joining us here on the program Wednesday, August 12, 2026. I am Kelly Egiga.
So, a lot has been playing out. For some reason, Osun State refused to go off the news. Understandably, the election is barely days away. Saturday, August the 15th, the people of Osun State will file out to go make a decision on whether they will choose out of the over 10 candidates who will be their governor, whether they will keep the job of Ademola Adeleke or they'll look for someone else. But the tension is stronger between Accord Party, which is the governor's party, and the All Progressives Congress, APC, or Ibamiji. And there has been very, very, very disturbing developments, such as violence, such as deaths, such as killings, whether it's court-related clashes or politically related killings. It's just been very troubling to witness and see how these things play out. The latest has to do with a senator who made a very disturbing and concerning and condemnable statement where he spoke in Yoruba, saying that if you see Accord Party members, kill them. Now, it was hosted by our colleague Sean yesterday, and Sean even gave him the opportunity. Was it that it was a slip of tongue and all of that? Well, he said what he meant is kill them with their votes, but that's not true. Because everyone who I've sent it to, including Sean yesterday, was doubling down on him, saying he understands Yoruba, he writes in Yoruba with all the inflections that he heard what he heard. It was clear that you said kill members of Accord. You are not mincing words. So let's balance the context here. Right now it's a bit difficult and almost challenging to look at who is really the aggressor. On one hand, the Accord Party says the APC, they are the aggressors. On the other hand, the APC says it is not true that all over the place everybody feels they are the aggressors, but it is the Accord Party that are the aggressors, and their reason is simple. Say, bring out the names of the people that have died so far in this particular, build up to this election. You will see that members of the APC or supporters of the APC have recorded the highest fatalities. So we're also expecting them. We told them, send us the names, because they have a name, they have addresses, they have family members. But that's what they are pushing. Say, if we are the aggressors, how come it is our people that are dying the most? So who exactly is the aggressor? Is it the Accord Party, the governor's party, or the APC, who say, if you say we are the aggressors, how come we're the ones that die the most? How are we going to be killing ourselves? So it's very disturbing. And I think the statement by the distinguished senator is totally responsible of what came out of his mouth to say what he said, because I'm saying this because people who understand Yoruba have said he said it as it is. He is saying he meant kill them with their votes. And I think the right thing to do is the police to pick up the senator, let him go and answer questions. Maybe DSS will be involved, because it cannot be tolerated. Yes, I can understand perhaps they were pushed to the wall for whatever reason, they can't take it anymore, but don't take laws into your hand to solve a problem. So what he said is totally condemnable, is not acceptable in a democracy. As a matter of fact, by today, I'll be looking through the news to see whether indeed the police will pick him up or call him for questioning, just because it is important. He's a member of the APC. This is why it's quite critical, because the Accord Party, they've always alleged that their members have been arrested indiscriminately without charges. They've said all kinds of things about arrests to the maybe 50 persons, 60 persons. I have heard Pelumi mention and scream on television, and the commissioner scream on television. So now that this is coming out from his mouth to our listening ears, a distinguished senator could make that very condemnable statement. He should be arrested. He should be called to question. Let him explain himself, and then whatever the law says in such kind of context, he should face the full wrath of the law. No matter how provoked you were, I can understand people can get angry for whatever is coming at them. But when you're in public, we've always said you need to contain yourself, especially during election seasons like this, because the supporters can pick it for the full value. You're the one who came on TV to be saying you meant kill them with their votes. The people who heard it did not hear that, and the place is already volatile. So the police must pick him up for him to have some explanations to do. Kelly.
Well, I totally agree with you, Jeffrey, because I'm not sure exactly what he was thinking. And I listened to that interview yesterday on a flagship political program, and I thought that Senator Francis Fadahunsi would perhaps have just said, you know what, I made a mistake, I am sorry, this is not, but he kept on going back and forth and saying, no, that's not what he meant. At some point he said he was going to send the full video to Sheung, that it has been edited. At some point he even blamed artificial intelligence, AI.
That's wow, now,
really AI. And I'm sure that's the narrative we're going to hear as we build up to 2027, where people are going to say things and they'll blame it on deep fake, on AI and all of that. So we're waiting to see the original video as he's saying. But I had thought that yesterday was a good platform for him to just say, you know what, I'm sorry, it was a slip of tongue or something. But he didn't say that. But some other things even caught my attention, Mr. Senator. How do you also argue that the governor has done some things in his place, Ede, and in your own place, Ife, things had not been done, making it look like perhaps there was some sort of disagreements around sharing formula or influence or money or power? That is what this was almost looking like, the governor had abandoned governance or development in your area, while in his own area, things had been done, better off than your place. That's what this perhaps was beginning to seem or appear like, perhaps, because I like the fact that you alluded to the fact that you were instrumental to bringing the governor into power. You were one of those who campaigned for him. So what has changed all of a sudden? The same man you marketed to the people of Osun State, today you're the one saying unprintable words about the governor. In fact, yesterday you referred to the governor as a terrorist, another unprintable words that you used to refer to the same man that you marketed. And this, the people of Osun State must know that politicians will always be politicians, and it's about their interest. This is not about the people, So I think I totally agree with you, Jeffrey. The police has to. I'm surprised that up to now the police has not even issued a statement or arrested him or called him in for questioning and all of that. He does not have immunity. He's a senator. He's not a governor. He doesn't have immunity. So he needs to answer for those threats that he made yesterday, because from all indications, from those who understand the language and have interpreted that video, they're saying that this was what he meant. He meant that, yes, we agree that there have been accusations from both ends, perhaps there have been killings from both ends, but that's not the way to go about it, to find the emblems of hate, incitement and violence and extremism barely 2 days to an election that has seen a lot of turbulence and violence already. I'm just wondering how August 15 is going to be. I'm just wondering what exactly is the plan. Should the elections be suspended? Should we declare a state of emergency? Because with all of this, I'm wondering how a resident will feel safe to go and cast his vote this Saturday, with all of the violence that has spread, with all of the threats from both camps. By the way, we're not making case here for Accord Party, because these accusations have come from both camps, whether it's Accord Party members or the APC members.
Yeah, so the APC has maintained, we've been in communication with all of them, and the APC has maintained that how come these killings happen and it is our people that die the most? We can't be killing our people. So they are accusing them, because everybody feels that APC is the aggressor. Attacking. That is, they are saying we are not there. Yes, there has been combat on both sides. But they are saying that look at the number of casualties in terms of fatalities. Our people or our supporters have died the most, and there's an argument in that. So we said bring all the names, because we have we have a responsibility to get to communicate with the police and get to see, okay, these people have addresses, they have a name, they have all of this. So it's just very painful that we're now doing statistics of who died the most in an election. So I don't know what is going on in the last 1 or 2 weeks, whether this is a week of recklessness. This is why the police and the DSS need to swoop in. First, it was a cleric who made quite an irresponsible statement with greatest respect to his position, and now a senator of the Federal Republic has also made an irresponsible statement and trying to say whatever it is he has said, but he said what he said. Yes, as I said, he may have been provoked, he's angry about what's going on in the killing, but that's not the way to go. So we're looking at security agencies, especially because this man is a member of the APC. So he has to be arrested or he has to be called in for questioning. This is the second call we are making to the security agencies for persons who are making divisive and very inflammatory statements to be called to order as soon as possible. Because if someone else in another party or someone else, somewhere else who is not pandering to supporting government, make this kind of statement and you move on them, then it means it's selective justice, and that's not how to build a nation. But guys,
I thought we were going to call out your friends again for not also your friends, Daniel Brother,
they're all our friends. We're all in the media together.
Because the first
okay, Bola is not a journalist, he's a lawyer. But the likes of Sunday Dari and Bayananago, those are balls in the industry. Well, we're still waiting for them. I haven't checked, so I don't want to make comments. When I check, because I'm checking, I try to check because they are the spokespersons of the president. So naturally, you should find out what the presidency is saying. But what I
checked Twitter this early morning.
We're still waiting for them to talk about the cleric, Sheikh Jingri, for that statement he made and condemn it. They haven't even gone as to even say condemnation. That's not fair. Now, a senator has added to the layer of your work. Because we will put you on the spot, not because you are in power, because if it's someone else, we know, and we gave the instance of Kwam 1 and Kwam 2, and then the Onaikon, now the Sheikh, and now Senator Fadahunsi. So it's just not right. It's just not right for people to be making inflammatory statements in a very volatile election like this. You can sit in your convoy and in your palaces and make statements as big men and come on TV and try to explain yourself differently. But the man on the street who is a passionate supporter will take it hook, line and sinker and will record more casualties. That's why you have to be careful about your emotions. And for that inability to be careful, you have to answer to the authorities. But we'll take a break. I'll be back after this. Stay with us. Let's get started with what the papers are saying. Spoiled for choice, Ms. Aigo Akera is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Ms. Akera, good to see you in suits red and blue. you came ready.
Good morning. It's a pleasure, really, as usual.
Good morning.
How are you today?
We're very okay. Let's talk about what the Vanguard is leading with, because I chose the Vanguard because it just segues and we piggyback on what has been the controversy heralding or leading to this election. Osun decides. Candidates talk tough, unveil plans for state. I'm a bulldozer, not afraid of federal might. That's according to Adeleke. Ibamiji downplays federal might, vows to banish poverty. Will build on past governors' achievement. That's Salam of ADC, I guess. Controversy over Senator Fadahunsi's comments. All of this is at page 6, page 8, and a page 13 read on the Vanguard newspaper. Zakaria.
Okay, well, the Osun election appears to be gaining a whole lot of traction at the moment, and for the right reasons, because this is the last off-cycle election we are going to have before the big one in January next year. And so what are the issues here? I see it as a three-horse race, really, between the ruling party in the state, that is the Accord Party, the ADC, and then, of course, the APC in the state. I monitored the town hall meeting yesterday that was aired live by a sister station, and I listened to all the candidates, including the incumbent governor, Ademola Adeleke, who actually cited a lot of his achievements as reasons for Osun people to re-elect him. But for me this morning, if you look at what the three candidates are saying, they are virtually repeating the same old stories that Nigerians have been relished with. We are going to build roads, we're going to provide security, we will focus on agriculture, we will provide electricity and and health and all of that. For me, these are very, very basic fundamentals, that meet human needs. Every human being, no matter where you are in any part of the world, I think that we are entitled to these very basic needs: roads, access roads, electricity, which is light. After all, the Bible said, after God created the world and he saw that everything was beautiful, he said, let there be light, and there was light. So electricity is important, as it were. And then, of course, health. There's need for people to stay alive. When you drive your car, you service the car, isn't it? So as you service the car, you want the car to continue to be on the road. That is human life. As we work, as we get involved in our daily activities, we need health care. So when these politicians talk about providing these basics, as if they are doing Nigerians a favor, I completely disagree. For some of us that has the benefit of traveling outside the country, if you go to China, for example, nobody is talking about roads and health and security and all of that in very serious societies. So I thought that by now we should be elevating the political conversations about what we are going to do. We are not living in a tech generation. Technology is driving the world. In China, for example, they are building hanging roads, hanging bridges. They are building 50-story, 100-story buildings for as residential quarters. I know China, for example, is the second most populous country after India, and they are able to feed themselves conveniently. If you go to China, food is not their problem. So when politicians come to tell us during campaigns that they will invest in agriculture and they will provide food, yet once they get to office, you don't get to see some of these things. You don't see the food. With security, Nigerians cannot really travel from even one local government to the other. You get kidnapped. Look at what has happened in Saga local government area in Kebbi State, where 10 of our gallant mobile policemen were mowed down by bandits. And so that is what is happening in the country at the moment. If you look at the three candidates, the three contending candidates in whether it's Ademola Adeleke, Dr. Najim Salam, or Muniruddin Oyebamiji of the APC, they are virtually saying the same thing. But for the incumbent governor, what he is banking on right now is what he has done, what the people can see. So for those who are making promises, Nigeria, the electorates are becoming a bit disillusioned with promises. Except you are in office and they've seen what you can do and they look at your pedigree and they can rely on your pedigree and trust you that you are likely, going to leave, rely on your pedigree if you do come to office. Otherwise, promises by politicians is no longer reliable. Apart from a few states in the country that are doing well at the moment, many of the states with humongous allocation coming from the federation account to the states, you can't see what they are doing with this money. So it is still the same old story of repeating, we'll do this for you, we'll do that for you. Right. But of importance this morning is the security of the elections in the state, because all the killings that are taking place, I think it is not necessary. If you are coming to serve the people, why do you need to kill them before you serve them? So these are the issues that will determine the voting pattern on Saturday.
Well, Mr. Keha, what we're hearing just in this morning is that as regards the Osun elections, the police has now officially summoned the APC Senator Francis Fadahunsi over threats to kill Accord members. That is captured by the cable. That's news just in. We're trying to confirm that for our viewers. Perhaps before the close of the show, we'll get through to the police in Osun State and see just how we can get a confirmation to that story. The Nigerian Tribune also states with that story as well. It says Adeleke demands Osun senators arrest. Adeleke demands Osun senator's arrest, accuses him of calling for the killing of Accord members, says it's a matter of national security. I said kill Accord with votes, not violence, Fadahunsi explains. Police to deploy over 10,000 personnel. There's a narrative as to the politics in Osun and Ekiti State is sort of very similar, but there are those who are saying that, you know what, the governor of Ekiti State, Biodun Oyebanji, was able to manage the peculiarities of the violence and of Ekiti State, because he was able to carry everyone along, whether they are from the PDP or the APC. And they're saying that's not the case with the Accord Party-led administration in Osun State. They said the incumbent governor is not a politician. He was not able to carry everyone along, and that's why perhaps even those who even brought him into power, who supported him, have now had to leave him. I wonder what you make of that narrative, because former governor Oyinlola also, have abandoned him, drawing supports for Oyebamiji, and then we also see Senator Fadahunsi, who was also instrumental as well to bringing him into power, also leaving him and going into opposition.
As journalists, it is difficult for us to know what happens behind the doors when politicians do their deals. The kind of deals, the kind of agreements that they agree to is difficult for anyone, to know really what they do. But when people say that, they were not carried along, how do you expect a governor to carry you along? For example, Governor Inola, he was former governor of the state. He was a former military administrator in the country, in this country. Well, what does people like that really need anymore? So when you say people should carry you along, is it by distributing some money to some of these individuals at the end of the month? Or what is it? Or consultation? Is difficult to pinpoint exactly what they mean by carrying along. But for me this morning, with regards to Fadahunsi State, he spoke in Yoruba. I understand a bit of Yoruba language, and he was very clear. He was, and he clearly told his supporters that anytime they see Accord Party members, between yesterday, that when he was making the statement, and Saturday before the election, that they should kill them. That was what he was saying. And then when the backlash started coming in, you saw that this is a sitting senator. He started retracting, he started backtracking and then recanting. That is not, that is unbecoming of a highly placed political leader in Osun State and in this country, because he makes laws. We have 111 senators in the Hallowed Chamber, in the Hallowed Senate Chamber. He is one of them, and he's a senior ranking senator. And look at the statement he's making. So you do not need any torchlight to look for those who are inciting violence, who are behind the killings in that state. This is an obvious, very naked evidence against this senator. So it is not about the police actually inviting him. I would have thought that as he made that statement, within 10-15 minutes, he should have been arrested by the commissioner of police in that state, or the senior police officers, or operatives of the Department of State Services present in that occasion. But we are in Nigeria, where people make inciting statements and then they get away with it. Look at Sheikh Jingiri, you mentioned earlier, who actually openly incited Muslims against Christians in this country. And we all know the volatility of this country. He came out openly, brazenly, with so much impunity, to say that Nigeria belongs to Muslims. Where in the world can anybody make this kind of statement and still be walking free, except in Nigeria? And that is why many people are alluding to the fact that the current government, is treating certain individuals, highly placed individuals, with kids' gloves, and then is going after the small fries, the Nigerians that are not connected. So this is really the challenge that we face as a country. I think Fadahunsi should be arrested, charged to court first thing today, and then he should make to face, defend his actions before a competent court of law. That is the only way we can make progress in this country. We have to live by the rule of law, and that is really the way to go.
Zakaria, the police actually, we reached out to the PPRO. He has confirmed that indeed is this someone uninvited. Let's see how that plays out at the end of today. But let's get to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with something totally different. For those of you who traveled by air yesterday, it was quite a very chaotic situation toward the busiest international airports, the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in the nation's capital, and the Murtala Mohammed International Airport right here in Lagos. Airpeace versus unions. Chaos as passengers airlines suffer losses from over 80 cancelled flights. Page 6 read. Now, for all of the engagements that have been affected, who pays, Mr. Kaya?
Well, I saw the chaos at the airport yesterday, at the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos, and the Nnamdi International Airport in Abuja. It's unfortunate that we have employers in this country who belong to associations. For example, the airlines belong to the Airline Operators of Nigeria, AON, and they don't want their workers to join any union. I think that is an aberration. That's at the root of the crisis there. When I listened to some interviews granted by the labor leaders yesterday, that the Airpeace management is denying their workers from joining unions. And I also listened to the Trade Union Congress president yesterday, who threw the weight of the TUC behind the workers, that the workers have a right to unionize. And I think that is the way to go. Unions are universally accepted where workers are employed to protect the interests of workers in that environment. So it's an unnecessary strike, and the people who suffered yesterday were the passengers some who had appointments to keep, some who were flying from one location to the other, to keep medical appointments, and to do one thing or the other, and look at the disruption that has occurred. So I think for me this morning, Airpeace should consider allowing their workers to join the union of their choice. It is a fundamental human right because Nigeria is a signatory to all the conventions of the International Labour Organization. And so for any organization, any company who tries to flout these international conventions by denying their workers' right to unionize, I think that is unacceptable.
Mr. Kenha, let's perhaps just take a look at another paper just this morning. We've got to explore that particular disruption yesterday with experts and major players this morning. But let's take a look at this Nigeria, which leads with something absolutely different from the other papers. It says farmers herders clashes, FG moves against open grazing, targets 6 flashpoints in fresh peace plan, begins ranching pilots in Plateau to revive 417 grazing reserves. We're almost back again to these issues around open grazing. It was a very big issue, especially in the last administration under President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. Keya.
It is sad that we are indeed back to it. The narrative, there's a need for us to deconstruct the narrative that farmers are clashing with herders. A farmer goes to plant his crops and somebody brings his cattle from somewhere, and rather than graze on grasses that are available, he deliberately moves the cattle into farmlands and get his cattle to consume crops. There's nobody who will allow that to happen. Nigeria is about the only country, in West Africa that I know. I'm not even talking of the rest part of the world where cattle are allowed to roam. Even the nation's capital, Abuja, you will see them here roaming everywhere, blocking traffic. This is clear indiscipline on the part of herders. And each time government tries to, to control them, you see the pushback. I think that these herders have some highly placed individuals either embedded in the government or somewhere who are protecting them. I also remember that at the onset of this administration, they passed a law, against open grazing. Many of the states already have existing laws, prohibiting open grazing. But I think the challenge here is law enforcement. That is where the issue of state police comes in. If many of the states have their police forces, I think this issue of open grazing is one area that these states will likely tackle, whether it's in the north or in the south of Nigeria. There's no way that cattle can roam about and graze on people's farm, that this conflict will ever come to an end. So now we have the Ministry of Livestock Development, and nobody even hears about them. The minister does not, is very silent. Nobody knows the work of that ministry. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu created that ministry apparently to solve this problem, but nobody knows what that ministry is doing. And the killings is continuing, the conflict is continuing, and it is also affecting food security and food supply to Nigeria. And that is why, many Nigerians are hungry, and then the access to food, to basic food that we are used to, is no longer there because of many of these herders who also infiltrated Nigeria from neighboring countries are becoming obstinate, becoming almost, operating with impunity, and that is just where we are. The whole multifarious problem that government have to deal with. A lot of these problems are simple. They are self-inflicted, and the lack of will, the political will to deal with these issues is emboldening these headers, including bandits who have now become terrorists. So, those in government need to develop the capacity and the political will, to address these issues. Otherwise, we'll continue to regress as a nation. It's so unfortunate and sad this morning.
Okay, well said. On this particular matter, in fact, anytime I go to the nation's capital, or heading back to the airport or coming into town, you just see all of this, livestock all over the place, this cattle everywhere, and in the median, just having the best time of their lives. I said, this is one thing that Nyek Wike, the Honorable Minister of the FCT, has not been able to pull off. I don't know why, but...
No, let me just chip in.
Yes.
Let me chip in. And when Nyek Wike, was appointed and he resumed duties in Abuja about 3 years ago. One of the first policy issues he made was that he had banned the open grazing in the nation's capital, and then he was actually going into some of the settlements to bring them down. But at some point, I guess that he was called to order again by these unseen, quote unquote powers that be. So no, Wike is no longer talking about them.
So even,
they are back to the streets.
Even the very powerful Nyek Wike couldn't go close.
So that tells you that it's a no-go area. It's a no-go area,
It's interesting. Maybe we'll be taking videos and posting going about. I was thinking you mentioned something in passing, and I just maybe we'll do a roll call of ministers. I always try to contextualize this. I don't know, maybe they are doing something that we don't know what they are doing, even as journalists. One of the top of that list is Minister of Marine and Blue Economy. Surprisingly, I heard his voice in this election. So Baba, you can talk with greatest respect. I've never heard him speak anywhere, just like he did, passionately like that. Minister of Steel Development.
Yeah, that's it.
Minister of Steel Development. I don't know anything that's going on there. Minister of Livestock. So I really don't know.
Even the minister of solid minerals. That's another, that is another mine. It's another huge, vast resources that we can earn a lot of money from. That is Dele Alake as the minister of solid minerals. We don't get to hear Dele Alake when he was commissioner for information in Lagos State. He was very active, a very intelligent journalist. But suddenly, he's quiet. We don't know what's going on behind the scene. So there are a whole lot of these ministers, as you said, they may be doing something, but if what you are doing, nobody gets to hear about them. So how can anybody say you are doing anything? I think they are just enjoying themselves. And nothing gets done.
Yes, for Dele Alake, without holding brief for him, at least I used to see, pressers, some gains in terms of monies. We're not generating enough from that ministry, but it's better than what we were doing before. At least we have, what do you call them? Yes. Mining marshal. So comparing him to Blue Economy, Livestock and Steel and the rest, we don't even know some minister's name.
Just like we don't know some government.
The one for Blue Economy. Let's face it. Now in Nigeria today, you can hardly have access to fish. Fish is a major source of protein. And now we rely more on cattle now. I remember those days we have ice fish that was brought in by the legendary Hebrew family. Now the ice fish now is even beyond the reach of the common man. And the blue economy is supposed to develop strategies, proposals that can energize Nigeria. To either purchase fishing vessels, and then we have vast oceans that we have fish. And the Chinese and other countries, other nationals are coming to our waters to fish, and they take the fish and all kinds of fishing opportunities and the resources we have in the ocean away to their country. So Dr. now is more interested in Oshu politics than organizing his ministry and developing the resources of his ministry to add value to our national economy. It is really so sad.
We're totally out of time. We hope the presidents will rejig at some point. Over 48 of them, I don't think we know up to maybe 15 at the tip of our fingers who are really active and doing something. Igor Akarea is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors, joining us with his expertise to break it down for us, what the papers are leading with. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we did tell you that the police has now confirmed that Senator Fadahunsi has now been invited. Is this someone who invited? I don't know what the word to use, but the papers reported someone. We've confirmed with them, but the police PPRO is standing by. Kelly.
Yeah. Well, Abiodun Ojelabi joins us live now from Osogbo, the Osun State capital. Is the PRO of police in Osun State. Thank you indeed, Mr. Abiodun, for agreeing to talk to us. Quickly, what's the word really, so that we get the exact semantics? Is it a summon? Has he been arrested?
Thank you very much. Good morning. The right word to use is he has been invited.
All right. Well, I mean, is that supposed to be the case? Is he supposed to be invited, or you're supposed to go after him?
Well, he is a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
He doesn't have immunity, PPRO.
No. We're not talking about immunity here. Even somebody not up to his status, we normally write invitation letter to them, and if they honor it, fine. If they honor it, then we'll go after them.
All right, PPRO, we don't want to keep you long because we know you have a very busy schedule, and we always thank you so much that whenever we call, you come through. So we appreciate you coming at this very short notice. So we heard what we heard. For those who understand Yoruba, he said what he said, although he came on television and tried to explain himself out of it. So since it's not a subject under adjudication, we can ask, so what exactly is the police going to find out from the videos we've seen?
Well, the DIG election is already on ground. The CP election is also on ground, and he is the one. The CP election is the one that actually sent out the invitation letter. And when he comes, the DIG and the CP election we come up with whatever they want to say, and we made it known to the public.
So we'll be expecting that we'll get a response as soon as possible. We'll allow the police to do their work, but the man said what he said. So if, for instance, yesterday my colleague did his best to make him to accept some responsibility, doubling down on the fact that he said what he said, but he refused. So if he keeps insisting that he said what he didn't say what we heard, but there's video evidence that he said what he said, kill them. How does the police manage that kind of situation? Video against the interrogation?
Well, before now we've issued out warning against inciting statement. Understand? And as seeing that video, it calls for serious concern, and that is what led to his invitation. So let him come and tell us what he's trying to say, or what he meant by kill them, and other inciting statements being made in that video.
Well, PRO, your name tells me you're from the southwest region, Abiodun Ojelabi. So if you were to interpret what he said, being a Yoruba man yourself, I wonder how you can interpret his exact words, Mr. PRO.
Well, let the speaker come and explain what he meant first, because interpretation goes a long way. I might have a different interpretation, he might have a different interpretation, but we all heard what he said, and we have a very large community of Yorubas that understood what he said very well.
I wonder if your men were on the ground at that rally, just before we let you go. Were your men on the ground, at that particular meeting?
Yeah, the men were on ground to provide security to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order in that rally. So they were there.
All right. DSP Abiodun Ojelabi is the PPRO Osun State. Thank you indeed for coming on the program. It was a very short notice, but thank you for confirming that indeed the Osun Senator Francis Fadahunsi has now been officially invited. We'll check in with you again later in the day to see how that conversation will go with the senator. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is the morning brief. Yesterday it was chaotic at the airports here in Lagos and Abuja. We'll find out why and what exactly is behind the backstory causing this disruption and issues around TSA and all of that. I'm told that we should not go on break, so let's head to that conversation right away because we're absolutely pressed for time. So let's get to talk about it this hour because it was chaotic. I know some persons yesterday who had to travel from the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, and their flights were delayed for many hours as a result of this protest, or well, some call it protest or disruption that played out right there at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport and in the airports in Abuja, Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. Jeff?
Absolutely. So let's get talking. We have our guest right here in our Lagos studios. Captain Roland Yayi is the former managing director, Nigerian Airspace Management Agency and Board of Trustees member, Airline Operators of Nigeria. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Also, Chris Aligbe is the former general manager, Public Affairs, Nigeria Airways, and also the chief CEO and chief consultant of Belgian Consult. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you, and good morning.
Let's begin with what exactly is behind it, because I read the presser from I think the NCAA to give a bit of a background to what happened. Nothing really to take away from, but the fact that there were issues, and then the union were actually invited to a meeting with the honorable minister. I guess he's not around, so because I knew if he's around, we'll definitely see him. So they reported that in that presser. But what they were saying in that presser was that they had invited the union members for a meeting that they didn't show up. So what are the, give us a full picture of what we're dealing with here.
Okay, so essentially there was a meeting convened by the Honorable Minister. That meeting was to be between the unions and the airline operators of Nigeria. The unions were willing to attend, as a matter of fact, probably attended, but the AON decided that we will not attend because the issue that was meant to be discussed was premised on the ticket sales charge, which is a contractual obligation between the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and the airlines. So the AON felt there was no basis to be sitting in conference with the unions to have a discussion on a matter they would not be able to resolve. That was the premise of the AON not attending that meeting. However, the root cause of this problem is a spike in the fuel price that we've seen since the beginning of the Iran-US conflict. In March of 2026, this year, fuel price around the world, Jet A1 fuel, spiked about 60 to 80% in other parts of the world. But in Nigeria, the spike was 270%. I mean, that's about 3 times the world average. Now, it's important to understand that fuel constitutes 40% of the operating expense of any airline operation. Now, that means that in just overnight, the fuel component of your operating cost trebled. That's 120%. At that point, airlines were already saying we can no longer sustain operations at these levels. Because, I mean, if you're not able to address all the other safety components of your operation, and everything you're doing is just selling tickets to buy fuel, it didn't make sense. So we sought to have audience with the president through the minister. The minister wasn't in the country when the AON had said that, look, there was a need to stop operations so at least we can address this pressing problem. The minister, got in touch with the AON and advised that we should please stand down that action. He was going to come in, convene meetings with the necessary parties and see how we could have some sort of resolution. Indeed, he convened meetings. The all marketers were there. The NMDPRA was there. The AON was there. Unfortunately, those meetings could not resolve the issues. So the AON decided that there was a need to escalate the matter because this is a major problem. Because if the AON would down tools for one day, the entire economy in the country would now come to a screeching halt. So there was a need to have audience with the right parties to be able to resolve the issues. the airline came, put together a package that was necessary to allow for the stabilization of the industry. I have a document here which we've prepared since March, and this is August. The only way this resolution would have come is to have audience with the president. And we've tried very, at different turns to see that we could get this audience and have this matter resolved. But it is yet unresolved. So we have a situation here where airlines, domestic airlines, are not in a position to be able to pay the 5% ticket sales charge to the NCA in a timely manner. Up until March of this year, domestic airlines were not owing, in the same quantum as we speak. I mean, it's a going concern. So at any point in time, there's some debt. So you have a 30 to 45-day window to resolve. In any case, since that's been the case, it's been very difficult for domestic airlines to be able to meet all the necessary obligations, operate the airlines, operate the operation safely, at the same time make payments to the NCAA. So the root cause of the problem, however you look at it, is the fact that the spike in fuel price worldwide, went to a point where in Nigeria it trebled. And that is beyond, what any airline, wherever in the world, can sustain.
Perhaps we should bring in Mr. Aligbe to the conversation as well. For what Captain is saying, Captain Yai, is that I think they want to seek audience with Mr. President. But it looks like perhaps the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, is putting some sort of barriers to their meeting with the president. I wonder why. And then that meeting that was held recently that you said perhaps it turned chaotic. Tell us about it.
Honestly speaking, I wouldn't know the conversation between AON and the minister or any other agent because I'm not part of AON. Yeah. So the meeting, yes, I'm neutral. I'm not part of yes. I'm not part of I don't work in any of the agencies. So I'm just an industry stakeholder. I've been there for over 30 years, okay? So what I'm saying, the public hearing in Abuja, I was there in the public hearing. At that public hearing, the issue was the TSC, ticket sales charge. And I wasn't comfortable when I left because the way it went, I quite didn't understand. I have never seen such a thing in the industry where two top agencies of the industry are at each other's throat. And it had never happened before, and I didn't think it should be so.
That's the AON and...
No, NAMA and
NCAA.
Yes, okay. That the two major agencies, well, FAN is there, but FAN is not part of this. So, the issue for them was the sharing ratio of the TSC. And I think a bill was already on ground saying it should be shared 40-40.
TSA meaning for the purpose of the audience.
Okay, ticket sales charge is a 5%.
Yes, I wanted to
okay, is a 5% this impose on every ticket sold. Okay, the airlines are supposed to make it part of the ticket and then pay it to NCAA, remit it to NCAA. NCAA now the sharing ratio would be applied. So in recent times, NCAA had complained they were not paying, they're owing. I don't want to get involved in that kind of thing because I don't have the records. But the truth of it is that the sharing ratio is 20 years old. It was established 2006 by one of our best brains in the industry, Dr. Shegu Demure. But Shegu Demure had a vision. He knew what he was doing. We accepted it. The only thing is that Dr. Demure never claimed to have seen tomorrow. He didn't see tomorrow. Tomorrow is here. And tomorrow demands that these things has to be looked at again. The industry, both NCA and NAMA, they are in a very stressed position, financial stress. And so the issue of they wanting money for this or for that, asking for shares is one can understand. But if you get it 40-40, because what they are getting, the percentage two of them are getting is approximately 80%. The other 20% goes to agencies like NCAT, NIMET and all those things. Now, but the present at the ratio is NCAA 56% or thereabout, and NAMA 22%. And it's gone to the point that NAMA says, sorry, this we cannot sustain our activities anymore. We are having a lot of things to do. And the former MD of NAMA is there, he knows the details of that. There are a lot of things to do, and we need money to do it. Otherwise, we will get into a problem. And the NCAA, the regulator, cannot get it done, because if the regulated does not have all that it takes to satisfy the demands of the regulator, the industry will suffer. Okay, now we have a catch-22. The NCA as a regulator, for me, NCA as a regulator needs to be, in terms of competence, needs to be maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of the regulated. Because they must be able to say, sorry, you are not doing it well, you are doing it well. But the regulated also must be at the level that they can respond to any query by NCAA. So their training at that level is also sacrosanct. And NAMA is handling electronic equipment, whether a radio system, whether it's a navigational system, and these things need to be upgraded like computer. 10 years, they are obsolete.
Okay,
okay, would you want to
just land your thoughts?
Yes. Yeah. So what is the issue is the sharing ratio. But I think that all of us in the industry, even both the assembly, National Assembly, they are not looking at, they are thinking about it as like a share, a cow meat. Make sure you have equal part. It doesn't go that way. But we are not looking at that place. Today, the government deducts 25-30% of revenue coming into all the agencies, all government parastatals agencies. NCAA is not a revenue generation agency. So it is wrong, it is not right that they should deduct 25-30% from NCAA. If government gives up, gets to zero deduction from NCAA, then funds will be released from the TSC, and the funds that will be released from the TSC will be added to NAMA. NAMA will have more funds, NCAA will have more funds.
So let me understand. Let me come to you, Captain. So there's a layer of NAMA and NCAA.
Yes.
There's the AON element of this argument. There's also the unions. I don't know who they are backing now.
Okay, so
just hold on. So he's mentioned, I would like you to react to some of the things he said so that we can help the audience understand what we're talking about. So he says it's a catch-22 situation, and he's already proffering solutions, although he admits there's a catch-22 situation. So in addition to that, in reacting to what he said, you brought out the document. So I want to find out what is really affecting the industry based on what you have explained. Is it a cost-push pressure that is causing maybe margin compression for the industry, that they are not able to meet their obligations in that sense beyond what you've explained?
Okay, so I don't want to conflate issues. So there are issues here. The issue of what the unions did yesterday is separate and distinct from the issues.
Yes, that's why I
So the point here very simply is this. The 5% ticket sales charge was introduced when we had the Federal Civil Aviation Authority. The Federal Civil Aviation Authority at that time housed all these elements of the industry under one roof. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, all of these entities were under the FCAA at the time when the 5% ticket sales charge was introduced. It is also important to note that at that time, there was a monopoly in the country. We had Nigeria Airways. Nigeria Airways was the only domestic airline operating in the entire country. Nigeria Airways did not pay 5% TSA. Okay? Now, we had only 2 million passengers flying in the entire ecosystem at the time. predominantly the 5% ticket sales charge came from international airlines. Okay? Now we had deregulation, and then we had a fray of domestic private entrepreneurs get into the fray. So this 5% ticket sales charge was applied in such a way that all domestic carriers now have to pay it. But importantly, it's important to note, when the Federal Civil Aviation Authority morphed to become the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, and the Nigerian Airspace Management Agencies, all these different agencies then introduced charges for their services independent of the 5%. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So that has pushed up the cost.
So right now we have a situation, and this is why the AON has talked about the multiplicity of taxes, duplicitous to a large extent, because you are charging 5%. The 5% originally was intended as a cost recovery for services of the FCAA. Now you have 3 different entities come out of the FCAA, and the 3 different entities have introduced separate charges for their services.
Yet, independent of the TSA.
Yet you sustain that 5% TSA.
Okay.
Now we recognize the fact that there is a paucity or a dearth of infrastructure in the airspace. There's a huge infrastructure deficit. So what we have said as AON is that the ad valorem model, which is a percentile model of this charge, is harmful to the growth of the industry. Why? Let me give you an example. If you buy a ticket, for instance, say 200,000 naira, you buy a ticket for say 300,000 naira, but both of you are on the same flight, right? 5% of 200,000, right, is 10,000. And in your case, you are looking at 15,000. Is it 15?
Yes,
yeah, 15,000 naira.
Yes, 16.
Okay, but you're on the same flight. The services you're taking and what he's taking is exactly the same, but you're paying differently. So essentially what that does is that it sort of disincentivizes the airline from being innovative. We talk about different airline models in other parts of the world, and we wonder why they don't work in Nigeria. Low-cost model. People buy tickets for about $5, and then of course the ancillary admin charges and stuff like that. In Nigeria, it can't work, because the model we operate as a government, does not encourage innovation. So what we are saying as AON is recognizing the fact that we have infrastructure deficit in the country. There's a need to maintain a separate purse, which we would term or call the Aviation Development Fund. The 5% TSE you're charging right now, we're asking that should be removed and instead replaced with a flat fee, like you pay the passenger service charge, which fund does. So when you have that flat fee, let that money go into a purse to be termed the Aviation Development Fund. In that purse, you will have all the different entities have access. In the meantime, like Mr. Alibe said, there is a need for government to understand that the industry is dynamic. So when you say that everything aviation has to go into the TSA, whereas you pay monies into the TSA, and then of course you are not asking the monies to be returned for use. It becomes a challenge. So the deductions at source is a major handicap for the aviation agencies, because they're not able to provide services.
So we can squeeze in as many questions as possible. So perhaps you can walk us through what played out yesterday with the disruption. And then I'm also wondering, because the pushback from the NCA is that if you guys continue with this aggressive lobbying, you guys will be absorbed back to what it used to be. So I wonder perhaps if NAMA and the likes and other groups are ready to perhaps go back to what it used to be. But maybe you can also walk us through, propose perhaps a sharing formula of what you think globally works, and perhaps maybe that can also work here.
Okay, thank you. There is no global standard, but every country has their own. There are, let's say, a little bit, maybe a little bit from what Captain Roland is saying. The fact is that every country, there are in some countries, it's about 10%. countries are 7%, but they have their own mechanisms of everything. What our challenge is, and I say this that this money that we are talking about is not ticket fare. It is passenger. It is the passenger that pays it.
We carry out the burden.
You say yes, passenger pays it, and so what happens is that it should be automatically put into a pool. The airline should put into a pool. Sometimes there's something they call BSP through the banking system that these things settlement plan, banking settlement plan, that airlines, this money goes into and then it goes to the agencies. Okay, but that at a point, maybe when the airlines started having some challenges, it was in place. They pulled out from it. Many airlines, one person pulled out, another person, and the other airlines say we are not going to do that again. But the thing that affected the airlines is the agencies should find a way of collecting the money. There's no other way of collecting the money. If the ticket, if the passengers pay. The only thing is that it should be an automated system where this is taken out so that the airlines won't be owing. And I agree with the airlines, they should not be the agent to this thing, but it should be an automated system.
So as soon as the money comes in,
yes, it goes into that pool.
So you're not indebted.
Yes, no interface with it, nothing. Nobody is accusing anybody of that. That's what I think. Airlines have the right to say we don't want to be an agent, but airlines have no right to hold the statutory passenger service charge. You can argue whether it is high or it's not high, but once the passenger has paid it, it should go into that automatically, go into that pool.
Maybe they can give the airlines incentive to say, instead of giving us 5%, take 1% from the collection.
Let me land.
Because of God time. Just land in 30 seconds.
Yes, okay. So what is happening is that when he goes in there, then he's shared. But what I'm saying is that the government should consider it not to deduct anything from NCAA funds. Once they don't deduct it, the issue is that whatever you add, if they stop deducting 30% or 20% from NCAA overall funds, it will release some funds. The funds will be much more than 40 or 45% of the TSC, thickness sensor. And so they can now give a smaller portion of the TSC to NCAA to bring it to, while the other one is added to NAMA. So that would be settled.
I like the conversation. We've got a solution on the table. I don't know why these solutions are not being talked about. So we have only about 1 minute to go. So Captain, in closing, apparently we can't delve into what the unions are agitating for. Maybe you can comment on that. So what I see here is the issue of the sharing formula and the TSC and how it could be remodeled. I also see the issue of what I call the cost push pressure coming in from the aviation fuel and all of it. Maybe you put it omnibus for us way forward.
Okay, so essentially, as the AON, we had proactively looked at the possibilities of getting this whole thing resolved because we understand our role as a major infrastructure provider for the entire economy. We came up with a proposed remedial stabilization package to the government for the purpose of looking at what the issues are with fuel. That's the basis. If you address this and you can guarantee supply to a large extent, then the prices being fairly stable, then it leaves room for planning, which we don't have now. Two, you talked about the issue of merging NAMA back to FAN or whatever it is. That is absolutely not possible. Why? NAMA, NCAA, and FAN are...
Is it true the NCAA is proposing that?
Well, I mean,
or threatening that?
There's a video going around where purportedly the DG of the NCAA said he was going to issue a letter of investigation to NAMA because NAMA is saying they don't have enough funds to carry out their obligations. And he said he was going to... He may want to issue an LOI, but he's not in a position to say that NAMA will now be merged with FAN. He doesn't have that authority. There's an act establishing NAMA, there's an act establishing the NCAA, there's an act establishing FAN, except of course the lawmakers deem it fit.
Nice everybody.
To do that. So I mean, I would say that whatever he said there really does not carry any weight. In terms of the unions, The unions talked about three different things. They said, oh, they were agitating for the TSC to be paid, or a particular airline wasn't unionizing, and whatever it is. The fact of the matter is that when you look at the videos we saw yesterday, Air Peace was picketed, but I did not see any Air Peace staff, there as part of a picket. So if the staff were agitating to be members of a union, I would expect to see them there. So I think that is this sort of a disingenuous way for the unions to just target Air Peace. Air Peace is the largest carrier. If you dislocate their operations in the domestic market, the entire economy can come to a screeching halt. It damages the industry, it damages the country, it damages our international outlook. So it's important for people to understand that you might say you want to cut your nose, you cut your nose to spite your face, so to speak. There is no way you will do any harm to Air Peace that you're not doing any harm to the entire industry. And as a matter of fact, even the NCAA, the 5% we're talking about, if Air Peace is not flying, over 50% of your revenues domestically is gone. So what is the incentive to create a disruption so that the airline is not flying?
Captain and Mr. Louis, apparently it's an ongoing conversation, but in all of this, I'm just thinking about how the prices can go down for those of us who fly.
As a matter of fact, if the airlines actually factor the cost of fuel, flights, most of the flights will be empty.
Yeah, I understand.
Beyond reach.
I understand. It's super expensive, depending on what time. But we must thank you both for coming on the program. We hope that the minister on his return will be able to put everybody in the room, and the conversation can ensue, so we have a viable.
And we also like to hear from the NCAA as well. We reached out to them for perspectives as well to be on this topic.
Yes, well.
So please.
All right, so Captain Roland Iyayi is a former managing director, Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, also the Board of Trustees member, Airline Operators of Nigeria. We have Chris Aligbe, former General Manager, Public Affairs, Nigerian Airways, and Chief Executive Officer, also Chief Consultant, Belgian Consult. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your insight. We'll keep touch base with you whenever it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so we'll take a break now. When we come back, today is International Youth Day, so we're going to have young people have conversation about national development, public leadership, and all of that. Stay with us in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program. Well, August 12, 2026, today is International Youth Day, and the idea is just to bring issues that affect young men and women today, highlight them, and try to celebrate the youths as well as look for the ways forward. So let's get to speak with those who we are talking about today. I'm a youth as well, so it's a day. Let's get some insights on the program this morning. We are joined by Olumati Isaiah. He's the candidate, Federal House of Reps, Action Democratic Party. We also have joining us this hour as well, Zakari Idris, political activist as well as a public affairs commentator, and from Boston, Massachusetts, is Emmanuel Zaka, international affairs analyst. Is also a master's graduates from the Harvard Kennedy School and Harvard Divinity School. Thank you indeed, gentlemen, for agreeing to talk to us here on the program. Let's begin the conversation with Isaiah. Isaiah, well, today is International Youth Day, so congratulations to you and us. How does it feel to be a young man in Nigeria?
Well, I think it's interesting as an individual first to be a young man. We have just one life, right? So it's one phase. I think we're getting the best of that phase. But then how does it feel to be a young man in Nigeria? I think it's a bittersweet taste. It's bitter because we have expectations, especially with the government, but when these expectations are not being met. However, on the flip side, Nigeria is a country of a multiplicity of possibilities, right? So that possibility gives us some hope. And my hope is, as we go forward and as we grow as a nation, that we can find balance between the value government brings or governance brings and the opportunities that we have in our space as Nigerians.
Well, let's take the conversation to Zachary as well. International Youth Day. When you look at the environments that we find ourselves, unfortunately, we're unable to get a female to be a part of this conversation today, so we're talking to all men. But when you look at this environment here, the average young Nigerian and the issues, I wonder perhaps how you think that you have been able to navigate that. Paint that backstory for us, please.
Thank you, great question, and thank you for having me. Like you rightly asked, today is International Youth Day. Is there much to celebrate as a young person living in Nigeria? I hate to be the purveyor of bad news, but I don't think there's very much to celebrate. Although, like my brother had rightly noted, the potentials are almost endless. The young person living in Nigeria is confronted by a myriad of problems, from the highest prevalence of drugs anywhere in the world, one of the countries with the highest prevalence of drugs, to the hopelessness that has been instituted by those in the political class, to the general air of crime and insecurity that the young people. This is the only country in the world where we have young people in the bush that are not animals, who, under the guise of Iswapism, kidnapping, and all manner of other social and criminal vices, have now made the bush their permanent abode. I don't think there's anywhere in the world where young people live in the bush running around with AK-47. Even in the urban areas, you have the prevalence of internet fraud, you have the prevalence of officism and all of the other funny things that happen only in Nigeria. It doesn't happen very much anywhere else. But I want to always note, I'm an incurable optimist. I believe that the problems are solvable. I believe that the average Nigerian, the young Nigerian, if he takes sufficient interest in those who govern him, and he puts himself out to lead the country, to lead in any sector or sphere, take more than a passive interest in what happens in his country, a lot can change in a very, very short period of time. And that's my call today on International Youth Day, that the young Nigerian must take more interest in those who lead, more interest in the process, the leadership recruitment process, and more leadership generally in the kind and quality of leaders we have, from the president down to the local government council. So that's my general take on today's day.
Let us all bring in Emmanuel Zaka, who is in Boston and joins us live on the program. Emmanuel, I know that the time difference is really, really wide, about 6 hours or thereabouts, and you've had to stay awake just to be on the show. But I know that you used to be a journalist in Kaduna State, and you were in the northern Nigeria for quite some time before you had to leave for the US to go study. But what goes on in the average mind of the youths, the average youths in northern Nigeria, a region you are very, very familiar with?
Thank you for having me. It's been a very long while, and thank you again for what you helped us do when 39 of our students were kidnapped at Afaka, where I taught before I came to the Divinity School and later to the Kennedy School. Truly, it is difficult to even add more to what my two colleagues, especially Idris, has said. But before I go into that, I want to also make it clear that none of us, except for Olu Martin maybe, are not a youth. I have not seen any definition that puts a 45-year-old as a youth. None. Now, I am not comfortable with that, with 50-year, 60-year-old people just occupying spaces that very young people within the ages of 15, 24, or 35, depending on what definition you are looking at, should be occupying. So what I worry about, especially in northern Nigeria, is that every single day I wake up, the first thing, I am even sometimes afraid to come on social media, because the first thing that greets me is the abduction of people. Just yesterday in Kaduna, I learned that within the metropolis, people were kidnapped, and most of the people that are engaged in this criminality are very, very young people. You see them, some of them are even kids. And I think what we are breeding for the future is something that should scare all of us. And unfortunately, it is no longer a thing of the North. It is something that is everywhere. So in the mind of the average young person in Nigeria is, how do we get the kids that are out of school, how do we get them back in school? Not just in school, but in school that have quality. Because sometimes it's not just getting people back to school, but what quality do we have in the school? And the schools that we even have, how do we prepare these young people not for a future that does not offer them anything, but for a future that offers them something? I've been to many conferences and classes here on policy. And you hear a lot of conversations around the fact that Africa has the highest population of young people in the world, and it will even get even not quite higher than say Asia, because Asia has higher population than Africa. But if you compare population to population, we have a large population of young people. But again, that population can be both either a blessing or it can be a curse. At the rate we are going, especially in Nigeria, especially in northern Nigeria, I'm afraid that if we do not do something very seriously to engage these young people, that population, that demography, instead of becoming a blessing to us as it is for other parts of the world, it would be a curse. And I'm afraid for us.
Let me bring you to Isaiah. So let's talk about political consciousness that Saga has raised. And I want us to contextualize it in real time. The elections are just maybe 5 months away, and the young people have registered, and they are going to be registering. They played a critical role in the last election. But I want us to talk about what the differentials are in terms of surviving the political atmosphere in Nigeria. It feels to me, from a journalist point of view and looking at how the scene has played out, and I'll give examples so that it contextualizes for your responses as well, because this is going to be a question for everyone. It feels like the older generation, there's something they understand about political consciousness and their ability to survive the political battle of attrition that gives them a staying power even when they're recording losses to the point where they are now victorious. So Bola Tinubu, for instance, our president, he was governor up until 2007 and patiently waited, fought all the battles he could within the state level, expanded his influence until 2023 he came to become president of Nigeria. He's now seeking re-election. Not everybody has that tenacity for the battle of attrition. Do you think that the young people of Nigeria, talking about political consciousness, are really ready for the kind of political battle and the attrition that is required to be able to, win out the older people as soon as they can? Let me start with Isaiah. Isaiah, that's for you.
I'm sorry, I think we had a bit of network glitch, so I didn't get that question very well.
I'm just talking about the ability of the older people.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I was trying to draw a parallel, if you will, between the older and the younger generation when it comes to political consciousness and what I call political battle of attrition. The ability to hold on for a long term to get what they want, as the sense of immediacy and urgency that young people want to use to swoop in to get things done. I want you to reconcile this position and how that will affect the political consciousness of young people to be able to come into power to make a difference. Or their network. Idris, if you can hear me, let me. Okay.
It's a bit of network glitch, but I think I hear a part of what you are saying, and I hope I can do justice to the question in the light that you have asked. We have two generations, as you've clearly pointed out.
Olumati, I hope that we can get back to getting you to speak to us, but the network is really not very supportive. Idris, I don't know whether you got my question. It's a question I want to put across to all of you because that's central to this conversation.
I got your question, fantastic question. I just want to, in answering your question, because you described it as some sort of virtue, that these guys who occupy public office today have been there long enough, had the patience to remain true to whatever they wanted, and today they have acquired power. The reality of it is that they seem to have acquired power for the sake of acquiring power alone. Because power in itself, they say, corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. For if you seek public office or you seek power, it should be to the effect of changing the lives of the generality, doing the greatest good to the greatest number of Nigerians, speaking in Nigerian context now, in the shortest possible time. I just give you a classical example. A couple of weeks ago, the bishops, the Catholic bishops, archbishops, if you like, in Nigeria, had gone to see the president, and as part of his reply to them for the myriad of problems they noted was besetting the country, he said that all is fair in politics. And this is not the kind of virtue we preach, because even in war, you see, Russia and Ukraine have agreed to fight. Even in that battle between two people who have pronounced themselves enemies, all is not fair. That's why you have the Geneva Convention. That's why you have a situation where in war, you cannot attack women and children, you cannot attack schools, you cannot attack churches, you cannot attack orphanages. So even in war, all is not fair. So the philosophical backing of our president that all is fair in politics is flawed fundamentally. I'll give you another example. Just yesterday, a senator of the Federal Republic was addressing his supporters in Osun State. And the senator said, if you find members of a particular political party, kill them. This is not from a movie, this is real life. And as we speak today, the senator of the Federal Republic is on TV telling lies that what he said was generated by AI, even when he said it in Yoruba. I don't know if our AI models now speak Yoruba language. And I'll give you a final one. In Kano State, an Islamic sheikh was addressing partisan people in Kano. And he said that the people of a particular religion must make it a duty to dominate those of the other religion in the country. And to that effect, he said, not on the premise of performance, that they must support the president who is running a same faith ticket. So, if you look at this litany that I have just explained, and how the government is quiet about it, and you now just suppose that with Justice Clark, for example, who reported the objective living condition of the Nigerian soldiers on the front line. And it was picked up. Keep in mind, just yesterday, 10 policemen of the SIS were killed by terrorists in Kebbi. And you now juxtapose that with Omoyele Sowore, who said the president was a criminal and the DSS was all over. So the DSS are taking this two guys. You compare that with what those in the ruling party have said, it now seems to me that there are two rules in Nigeria. One for those who are Nigerians who do not believe in the APC, and one for Nigerians who are in the APC. This is bad behavior that must not be encouraged. So for the youth, like I said before, take more than just a passive interest in politics, because we must effectively, we have to dismantle this confusion as we approach 2027.
Let me see whether I can get in not Idris now, Isaiah. Can you hear me now, Isaiah? Isaiah, if you can hear me, I want to see
Yes,
what
I think I can hear you.
Yes, so Idris has, gone
Yes, I can hear you.
Idris has gone into a lot of aspects of the conversation. But my core conversation has to do with understanding the kind of politics we play, putting it in simple terms, and knowing how to approach it, to invade it if possible, and super saturate it so that there will be a new school of thought. That's my question.
Well, I like to put it this way, and I've said it to anybody that cares to listen. I reiterated this, or I began to preach this in 2022. I think that the mass population of the young people in this country seem to draw a measure of ego from complaints. They're excited about being right. They're excited about having knowledge of the problem. But that quality of passion, that energy, does not come in when they have to put their boots down and do the job. Now, when I mean do the job, I do not mean campaigning. I do not mean publicizing. I mean, put yourself in the position to be responsible at that level. You see, so when it comes to responsibility at that level, you have them shy away. And things we have them say is, we have young people say stuff like, they have not given us power. And I insist that power is not given, power is taken. We have to have a young mass of people that will go beyond complaints, that will go beyond protests, that will go beyond social media dragging and all of that, and then put their foot down, put their boots down. If they have to raise funds, they raise funds. If they have to build a valuable following, they build a valuable following, and they have to go. And I say this with all sense of responsibility. And I'm glad that my dear brother Zachary is on this contest. We have to go beyond being good. We have to become necessary. There is so much around the play of good that people are not doing what is necessary to be in the system or to take power or to take responsibility. We listen to people. When people speak, I hear what they are saying, I hear what they are not saying. And I know we're national television, but I have to put it out. There is a measure of evil that must meet evil at a point if evil will not give way for good. And until young people get to that point, we may not, advance beyond this. We will complain, we will cry, but we will not go beyond it.
Zaka, we can talk about the problems from now till tomorrow. We're not in short supply when it comes to Nigeria's problem. For some of us, we just want to make sure that as many of you young people as possible get into the space. So it's the same question I asked, because it's central to the leadership of our country. If they say young people are in the majority, significant majority, that means they can not only just move the needle, they can swing things drastically. And if you put the young people at the policy level, you can imagine what that means with their ingenuity and maybe the addition of the wisdom of the elderly. So talk to us about strategy of getting in and being relevant when you get in, rather than just being, boys that scrape the table.
Yeah, I love the pushback that Idris gave concerning whether it is even a virtue that people wait for long and then they come to power and they offer nothing. Buhari is a very classical example of that patience, waiting. He waited all his life, and thank God he finally got the opportunity to show us what he had, and God rest his soul. But the story is out there. We know exactly what he offered. Now, I meet young Nigerians, because the thing is, we have to also understand that the youth we are talking about do not just reside in Nigeria. There are so many of them that are outside the country. And I think there is a way that we need to have this collaboration between those that are on the continent, those that are at home, and those that are in the diaspora. Like just at Harvard alone, I have met more than 50 young Nigerians. Some of them are actually born in the US, actually, but some of them came here with their parents. They came with their parents when they were very young. They are excited about home. They have a lot that they have to offer. And the interesting thing is the contrast between the youth in Nigeria and the youth here. Here you have somebody who is graduating from college. The person has already had like 5 different internship experiences. The person is able to build something. The person is sure that after school, they are choosing where they even want to work, and they are very big places. So, but back home in Nigeria, you are talking about young people, not just young people. I've told you that after 35, I don't think it's fair to call anybody even young. People who are even in their 50s, you find them that they are the ones who are following politicians up and down because they have family, they don't have work, they don't have anything, any means of feeding their family, so they rely on being loyal to politicians who are responsible for their predicaments in order to survive. So if you have the mass of the people in that kind of condition, these are the people you are planning a future with. How do you plan it? I think the way is to go about doing it. Idris, Zaka, Martins, let us just go about doing it. The few of us that understand that this thing is possible, let us just keep doing it, not minding the number. Gradually, by the time we begin to see small results, people will just come in, because the result has a way of attracting people. Another thing I think we should pay attention to is that we have a lot of energy young people. sometimes the energy in the right direction, but usually this energy comes around election time. And once election is gone and we are disappointed with the result, the energy dissipates and we go back again to complaining. Some of us, we even compromise and fall in and go the easy way. But we have to stay the course. We have to agree on exactly what it is that we want. What kind of Nigeria that we really, really want. So we have an idea exactly where we are going, and we continue to move in that direction so that when we have the opportunity, we will not perform abysmally as some of the young people who have been given opportunity have really disappointed.
All right.
I think that is the way to go. We should stay the course. We should continue to do it there.
Let me ask all three of you very, very personal questions, and I'm going to run through this as quickly as possible. For you, Zaka, what values would you refuse to compromise, even if compromising those values would perhaps eventually make you rich? Very quickly, just one or two.
What values will I?
What values would you refuse to compromise, even if compromising those values would have made you rich?
I would never compromise the values of not taking bribe. I would never ever want to take a bribe to see what is wrong and then say that it is not.
All right.
Again, I will never sell my vote.
That's fine.
Never pay. I will never accept money for my vote.
So that's about three from you. Zachary as well, are you there? What values would you refuse to compromise, even if compromising those values would eventually make you rich?
You're asking a practical question because we are about to live through this reality, and that is that I will never side with the oppressors, no matter how fanciful it is, and especially in this country today, we have only one oppressor, those who occupy public office, and have refused to use it to do public good. So no matter how disappointing it is, no matter how much Nigerians mock you for not having money, for not having a car, for not living the life, I don't feel the need to be in the corridors of power simply for the sake of being there, if it's not meant for the good of the generality of the public.
Isaiah, talk to us and make that declaration as well. What values would you refuse to compromise? Lumati, can you hear us? Oh my word.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great.
Well, you are asking a very practical question. You are asking a question I consider highly experiential because I've been there, where I've been offered some good sum. Permit me not to mention. I think it's the value of integrity, to stay true to my conscience, to stay true to my conviction, to insist on what I think is right. I am highly unwilling to compromise at that level, regardless of what is offered. Maybe especially this is because I am not a career politician. I have a day job which I am highly committed to. That takes good care of me, but probably in spite of that, I'm just unwilling to compromise on my integrity.
Well, gentlemen, thank you indeed for your time. Thank you indeed for your commitment to Nigeria as well. I'm trying to see if I can pull the theme for the International Youth Day for today. I'm trying to see if I can pull the theme out. Different context, common aspirations. And I believe this reflects our aspirations, whether you're from the north, from the south, from the east, or from the west. But as always, thank you indeed, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Let me see if I can just run through your names again and your designations. We've been joined this hour by Olumati Isaiah. He's the candidate, Federal House of Reps, Action Democratic Party. Zakari Idris, political activist and public affairs commentator. And Emmanuel Junior Zakawu has joined us live from Boston. He's an international affairs analyst and master's graduate from the Harvard Kennedy School and Harvard Divinity School. Thank you indeed, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martin, and thank you, Zachary. We connect on the social media. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. So let's keep those conversations going on our social media platforms. So this is the morning brief. Let's take a moment. So when we come back, we get to head to something else which has to do with leadership. We're back in just a moment, everyone. Please stay with us.
We'll continue our conversation around leadership, but this time we bring in Ayo Owodunni. He's a politician and city councillor at Kitchener in Ontario, Canada. He's been here before. Welcome back to the program. Good morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here with both of you.
Yeah.
Thanks. When you are talking about you,
This is your second coming.
this is my second one. You're talking about you, as I'm youth too.
I'm not a youth. I don't like to go, because Nigeria contextualizes things. I think Nigeria takes it as far as 35 or so, but youth actually should end maybe 29 or 30 most, but we try to push the boundaries to 35, sometimes to push it to 40, and now way past all of that. But it sounds so old. I'm young at heart, and I embrace every opportunity. But let's talk about some contextualization. We got off that conversation with a very young, brilliant gentleman.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I was trying to push them is the fact that let's look at the way the leaders, today's leaders who refuse to leave power, they've been there for like forever. If you see some of the names, you realize this person was this, that in the 80s, this, that in the 70s, this, that in the 90s, but they are still prominent today. I was trying to look at how they can learn in terms of the attrition to be able to stay relevant that long, although they say it's not a virtue we should celebrate, because when they eventually grab power, what do they do with the power? But let's come to Canada, where you are. How does it play out in terms of, do we have the same scenario of people who have been in perpetually in power, still in power, or there is the turnover that is healthy?
Well, I will say it varies. There are three levels of government. In some areas, we call it four-tier government. And so I'll give you an example. There's a mayor that is almost 80 years old and is seeking re-election. We have an election coming up in Cameroon. He's Canadian, born and raised in Canadian, and he is seeking re-election again, and he is 80 years old. And so in a conversation like that, it's a well-known city, it's a growing city, it's a popular city, and there are complaints within the city now where people are saying, Oga, it's time for you to step down and give other people an opportunity. And Oga is not willing to do that. He feels he's still strong enough to be able to do it. So there are people that have done that. There are people that have served 4 terms, 5 terms. Our laws do not hold you back in terms of the number of times that you can run. So, for example, your prime minister can be there for as long as he wants and be re-elected for as long as he wants. Although, usually what they say, the power of the people is really important in Canada. And what usually happens is at some point, people want change. They want a new person. They want a fresh face. They want fresh ideas. And they're more than willing. They know they have the power to be able to vote those people out. And by the time people start reading the signs, they're able to graciously step out. It's either you graciously step down, or you are asked to step aside completely as well. The provincial leader of the Liberal Party, she recently, she only got I believe it was 59% or something like that when it came to re-election bid for the leader of the party, and she decided to step down. She didn't feel that she got the full support of the party, and she decided to step down and went to look for something else. I think at the end of the day, the key thing is, before you go into politics, many times people already had a career going, so you have something to go back to. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So I do have colleagues who were in politics, who lost their election or decided to step down or decided to go back to whatever it is that they were doing, and it was not the end of the world decision for them because they had something to go back to. And that is a critical factor. If you don't have something to go back to, that's when, by fire, by force, I must stay here for as long as I need to be.
I was going to even just ask that question as to whether or not politics should be seen as a career for some people. But since you've answered that, because for some, they don't get it, they can practically be depressed because some people in this part of the world want to stay in the corridors of power for as long as possible. But why is leadership such a big challenge? this part of the world. I mean, you've mentioned that, there's a councillor who is about 80. President Donald Trump, I think, is in his 80s as well. Joe Biden as well, practically. But these people found themselves in countries where they have very strong institutions. And even at 80, you will see them very agile. For every time you're seeing Donald Trump about to board the chopper, he grants interviews. That's not the case with our politicians in the continent. Paul Biya has not been seen in Cameroon since he won the elections. And I mean, for 40 years plus. And although
I think he visited recently.
Recently. Yes, I heard that. Yeah. So Switzerland is his permanent home, according to. But why is leadership such a big challenge? Because we're just talking just before the show that you're a city councillor in Canada.
Yes.
Same structure in Nigeria. But the results totally different. Why?
That's a deep conversation, and that is a long conversation that we do need to have. Number one, I think systems are important. Where are we pulling our future leaders from? Where are they being trained? What is the succession planning program that is put in place? A politician heard me speak at an event in Canada and approached me and said, "Have you ever thought about running for public office?" That was how I was recruited. So I was not in.
So you didn't give any. There was not like godfatherism, or you didn't give anybody any. You didn't go to give. In this part, we give cola.
No, I was literally just approached. Heard me speak. This individual is eloquent, and it looks like I was doing community service already.
Wow.
So most of the parties that I'm aware of, that I've had conversations with, they're looking for people that have a particular track record, and they want that track record, those individuals that have those track records, to be part of their party, to represent their party. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So you will notice whether one particular party, they're looking for people that are successful in business or successful entrepreneurs that are doing quite well in their careers, because they know that if you come in, you will come in to serve. You are not coming there to grab. Whereas other places, they're looking for people that have done deep community service, they're connected to the grassroots, they're educated, all of those things are things that they are looking for to say, okay, these are the types of people that I want to represent us. They are telling you your profile as they're sitting with you because they have watched and observed you for a while. They actually have people within the party who are seeking for the next potential MPs, MPPs, next potential senators, next potential ministers. There are people that are doing that constantly. So when you have that type of system in place, it is easier to be able to churn out much better politicians, because the politicians did not come randomly out of nowhere. The politicians who are being cooked somewhere, quote unquote, and then they're being developed. So there is a succession planning, there are programs that have been put, systems that they're using to filter through to get the right people to be able to join. That makes a big difference. So it's a system issue. If the system is fixed, is corrected, it makes a big difference at the end of the day.
So let's talk about, there's no perfect system anywhere.
There's none.
America has their issues. As a matter of fact, I say that if America was not America, I don't know what Donald Trump would have turned that country into, given his kind of person and how he does. I was seeing videos the other day that he was in Turkey. I had to use a crater to board another 16 to head to the UK because Iran wants to do to him what he did to Ayatollah. But let's talk about two key words, and I want you to juxtapose them and why the outcome seem to differ between the West and here, besides issues of institution. I'm talking about character now. Service and survival. Because you spoke about the fact that how you were discovered because you were in a place of service, and then of course you spoke eloquently. Somebody approached you and maybe looked at your profile and said, okay, you're fit.
I spoke. I don't know if I spoke eloquently. I spoke.
you spoke. And it caught their attention. It tickled their fancy, and they approached you. So, and then maybe when they looked into your record, it's okay, this person already has a record that is of importance to what we represent. So talk about service. Our politicians most of the time talk about they are in for service, but when you check their bank accounts or their assets prior to entering office and when they leave, I don't know who served who. I think the country served some of them. Some of them did not serve us. So help us. What can we do to invoke a stronger sense of service than the sense of survival that we see in leadership?
It starts with the structures and the policies that are put in place in political parties when they look to source for future candidates, identify future candidates. If that can be fixed, that can play a significant role, number one. Number two, when candidates are going campaigning, we ought to hear and see what their previous the things that they've done before. What have you done before to show us where you are taking us? You know, your previous practices, your previous performance, will predict your future performance. So when we were going campaigning, even before we started campaigning, someone sat with me and interviewed me. They wanted to understand my service, my background, what I've done. You know, they wanted to get a full understanding. They contacted those places to make sure that I wasn't making it up. You know, they wanted to get a full understanding of who Ayoduni was and what Ayoduni has been able to accomplish in his time in Canada. And then based off of that was able to help them say, okay, this is the kind of person that we're looking for. Then by the time I was going door to door, or by the time we were campaigning and having conversations with people, the first question there are 3 questions every time. By the way, nobody asked me where I was from, which I thought was interesting. What is your vision? What is your vision for our city? What are you planning to do for this city? They will probably ask, where do you live? Just to make sure you live within the borders. And then what have you done? Those were the 3 questions that people asked consistently. And then when you talked about the vision, they would challenge, they would push back, they would ask their questions, you know. And then at the end, if they feel like you've convinced them somehow, you know, that, okay, this is someone I want to listen to some more, they might want to have a neighborhood conversation with you. That's when all the neighbors come together and they now start probing you with a lot of questions, you know. So I had to explain.
So it's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work.
Like you're literally pitching.
You are pitching to them, and if you have not done your research beforehand, they will know.
And this is counselor.
This is Councillor Rowe.
We don't even know the councillors yet.
Yeah, we're not talking about the MPs and, you know, those people, members of parliament. You know, this is just for the basic Councillor Rowe. Wow. People are asking those questions. Now, the politicians recruit from Councillor Rowe. The federal politicians, if you're looking to run for federal, they are now looking for those councillors that are doing well, that are able to make a name for themselves, and they're doing programs, running things, they're connected to the community. So I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. The system is built there to look for service. Now, there are policies in place as well to be able to ensure that things are very tightly kept. So I'll give you an example. For example, if I'm giving any gift over $150, it has to be publicly declared. I have to fill out a form.
If somebody gives you just $150,
any gift over $150, I have to publicly declare it in Canada. So I have to write down, you know, the name of the person, what the gift was, or the gift amount. In fact, I remember somebody gave me a suit. A Nigerian gave me a suit. I think it was for my birthday, and they didn't give me the receipt. And I said, I need the receipt. And they said, why? It's a gift. I said, sir, it does not work that way. I need the receipt. You know, so I'm filling out so they had to go back to go get me the receipts and brought it back, and then I had to fill out the form. And then it gets to a point where you are now thinking, is it even worth it that somebody gave me shoe, I have to fill out form? Because by the time your constituents go online, they see shoe, they see suits, they will start asking, Oga, did you take this job so I can be dressing you? So at some point, you just start turning down gifts, because it ends up making you look bad. You know, because all of these things are recorded and they're posted online. Wow. Everybody that gives to your campaign is recorded and posted online as well. You can go online and Google my name and elections, you know, from 2022. You can see the list of people, their names, their address, their email address, those types of information, the amount they give to the campaign. And there's a limit that each individual can give to a campaign. A company cannot give to your campaign. Individuals have to give to your campaign. There's a limit tag to all of it. So no one can just come and bam, you know, here you go, this is your whole campaign. No. I believe as of 2022, the limit was $1,200 for local election, and I think for federal election.
That's for an individual to give you.
For an individual to give you. So it evens the playing field. You know, at the end of the day.
So it takes you back to the people. You are people dependent.
You are people dependent.
That's the central thing.
And they know that you are dependent on them. That's why they probe you at the door. And I mean, of course, there are people that shut the door on me and say, I don't trust politicians. All of you are liars and corrupt. And they slam their door at me. You know, however,
let's begin to wind down now. I'm just wondering, can we ever get to that level of politicking in this part of the world? Because our politics here is heavily monetized, heavily commercialized. So when you say there are limits to all of this and you have to get the receipts for purchasing a suit and all of that, so I'm just wondering, can we ever get to that point? But maybe also quickly, the Nigerians you're interfacing and interacting with in Ontario and in Canada, what are they saying to you? What are their concerns?
There are many Nigerians that are very proud. It's amazing how we can be divided outside of the country, but when we're in a new country, we come together.
There's no ethnicity.
There's no ethnicity. The person that ran my campaign is not Yoruba. The person was a Nigerian, reached out and said, I'm willing to run your campaign for you. They don't come from my tribe, but they were willing to support. The people that gave, the people that went door knocking, the people that managed the campaign had no political background. They were Nigerians. 90% of my campaign team were Nigerians. They didn't have they didn't come from Ogun State. They're not from Ijebu. You know, they were just willing to support. But in terms of what are some of the concerns that people have, I think the transition, many times the transition has been tough for a lot of people. You know, usually what we say is it takes about 5 years for people to settle down and start running again in a new country. So that has been a major issue for many Nigerians who move. Of course, they cannot tell all of you back home. They have to show you beautiful pictures. But many are struggling over there, looking for jobs, searching for.
Well, we have expectations of them. They must send money to us.
You know, they are still sending. You know, but at the end of the day, many at that initial onset need that help with the transitions. Many want to understand the system better. People are interested in politics in Canada, so they're learning about how it works.
But totally out of time, 30 seconds. What brought you to the country? Just a visit, or?
I'm here to visit family. Our election is around the corner. I'm here to spend time with family here in Nigeria. And to come and hang out with you as well.
Always a delight. Always a pleasure to have you. So we can do this comparative analytics and learn from one another.
Thank you very much.
Ayodele is a politician and city councillor of Kitchener in Ontario, Canada. Thank you, as always, for coming through.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, your usual company. I'm Jeffrey Ozama. Bye-bye.
Well, it's International Youth Day. Happy International Youth Day to our Nigerian youths. From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Egiga. Sunrise Daily is up next. Good morning.